I want to start with a very specific moment that I think almost everyone in a long-term relationship has probably felt.
Okay.
You're with a partner who is, the quintessential nurturer. They're warm, they're receptive, they're the soft place to land.
Mm-hmm.
And then a crisis hits, like a medical emergency or a huge financial decision, and all of a sudden they become absolutely terrifying.
Terrifying. How so?
In a get out of my way kind of way. I mean, they get surgically precise, cold almost, so decisive.
Right. And then you've got the flip side.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
partner who's usually the rock, the stoic protector, the one who never flinches.
And then you find them in a quiet moment, and they have this massive untapped well of empathy that would honestly put a therapist to shame.
It's such a common thing. And when we see it, when the soft one gets hard or the hard one gets soft, our first thought is, that's a glitch.
A total glitch. We think, whoa, that is so out of character. Are they okay?
Or worse, we see it as a betrayal of who they're supposed to be. But the research we're diving into today just flips that entire idea on its head.
It really does.
It argues that what looks like a contradiction is actually the secret sauce to a relationship that doesn't burn out.
That's it. We are looking at a framework today that really challenges the definitions of, gender roles and energy in relationships. It basically argues that we've completely confused who we are with what we do to make a relationship work.
The source material uses this term that I really like it, even though it sounds a little bit corporate.
I know which one you mean.
Functional intelligence.
It does sound a little dry, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's actually revolutionary for romance. And I think the mission for this deep dive is to really unpack that.
Right.
We want to explore why sticking to your assigned role, the masculine provider or the feminine nurturer, is actually a recipe for resentment.
And we should be super clear up front here because this gets sticky fast. When we say masculine and feminine today, we aren't talking about men and women necessarily.
No, not at all. The source material is very, very specific about this. These are energetic poles. They're functions.
Like in physics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In any partnership, regardless of gender, usually one person holds the pole of, say, structure and direction, and the other holds the pole of connection and flow. It's about function, not biology.
Okay, so let's get into the mechanics. The big hook here is the distinction between a role and a trait. This feels like the foundation we have to lay down.
It is. And honestly, confusing these two things is where I'd say 90% of relationship conflict starts. The text defines a role as a job description.
A job description.
It's what the system the relationship needs to stay balanced. So a role might be keeping the emotional bond alive or ensuring physical safety. That's the job.
Okay. Role equals job. Simple enough.
Right. Now, a trait, that's the tool you use to do the job.
Role is the job. Trait is the tool.
You got it. And the problem is, society has spent centuries telling us that if you have the feminine role, you're only allowed to use feminine tools. Be soft, passive, receptive all the time.
And if you're in the masculine role, you can only use the masculine tools. Be hard, stoic, decisive.
Which is just absurd when you think about it in any other context.
It really is. It's like hiring a master carpenter to build a house, but then telling them, okay, you can build it, but you're only allowed to use a screwdriver.
You can't touch the hammer. The hammer's for the other guy. And don't even look at the power saw.
Right. And of course, the house doesn't get built or it falls down.
And that is where functional intelligence comes in. The text argues that in a healthy relationship, traits move toward necessity, not identity. You grab the tool you need for the job.
Regardless of whether that tool is supposed to belong to your role?
Exactly.
But see, this is where people get tripped up. Because if the soft partner, let's say, the more feminine partner in a dynamic, suddenly grabs the hammer and sets a hard boundary, people say.
Oh, look, role reversal. She's wearing the pants now.
The reversal myth.
Right. And the analysis here is very firm on this. That is not role reversal. That is functional intelligence.
It's just being effective.
It's being effective. If the feminine partner needs to set a hard boundary to protect the peace of the home, using a hard tool doesn't make her masculine. It makes her a good guardian of the home.
So we've been looking at it all wrong. We see a break in character and think the relationship is destabilizing.
When actually the relationship is. It's adapting. It's stabilizing itself. Look, history gave us stereotypes because they were easy shortcuts. Men do X, women do Y. Predictable.
But reality is messy.
Reality requires adaptation. If you stick to the stereotype when the house is on fire, you fail the relationship.
Okay, let's get into the weeds on this because the breakdown of the two archetypes is really insightful. I want to start with the priority feminine partner.
Okay.
So again, this is the person anchoring the emotional life of the duo. What does that job actually look like day to day?
Well, according to the text, that function is about anchoring things like emotional truth, intuitive direction, relational depth.
They're the ones scanning for how does this feel?
Exactly. What's the meaning of this interaction? They're sensing the nuance that the more structural partner might miss.
They're like the heart rate monitor of the relationship. They know the vibe is off before anyone even says a word.
Precisely. That
Oh.
sensitivity to context.
Mm.
Which sounds lovely, right? Who doesn't want that warmth?
Yeah.
But, and here's the key, the text points out a massive vulnerability.
What happens if you only have those soft traits?
You get crushed.
Yeah.
That's the blunt reality. The text says if the feminine role is all openness and no structure, then openness turns into overgiving. Sensitivity turns into self-erasure. You just lose your borders.
I think so many people listening can relate to that. You want to be accommodating, you want to keep the peace, so you just keep opening the door.
And suddenly you feel like a doormat. You're resentful because you've given everything away.
And you burn out.
You burn out. You feel drained because you have no way to stop the flow. And this is where the toolbox comes in. To protect that feminine role, to keep being that loving, open partner, you must develop traits society labels as masculine.
So let's list the hammers. What does the feminine partner need to grab to survive?
Boundary setting,
Okay.
decisiveness, self-trust, assertive clarity, even structural thinking.
It's the paradox again. To be the soft one, you have to be hard enough to set a boundary.
Think of it like a beautiful, lush garden. The feminine energy is the flowers, the growth, the life. It's wild and beautiful.
Sure.
But if you don't have a fence, which is a structural masculine element, the deer eat the flowers.
Mm.
The weeds take over.
People trample the beds, so the fence doesn't stop it from being a garden.
The fence allows it to be a garden.
Wow.
And there's a line in the source that I highlighted because it just sums this up so perfectly. Strength allows openness to remain safe.
Strength allows openness to remain safe.
You can't be truly open if you're terrified of being hurt because you have no way to defend yourself.
That's a heavy point. If I'm defenseless, I can't actually be vulnerable. I'm just exposed.
That's it. True vulnerability requires the capacity for defense. Otherwise, it's just recklessness.
And if you know you can say no and mean it.
Then your yes actually means something. If you can't say no, your yes is just compliance.
Oof. Okay, that hits home. Let's flip the coin. Let's talk about the priority masculine partner. The rock. The provider.
The one who supposedly has it all together.
What's their function?
The text lists things like containment, steadiness, direction, responsibility, continuity. They're the ones asking, where are we going? Are we safe? Is the roof leaking?
Do we have enough for winter?
Exactly. They're the frame, the go signal.
But same logic applies, right? If you only have those traits, if you're 100% structure, 100% direction, zero softness, what do you become?
You become a tyrant or a robot.
Or just an empty castle.
Right. You become efficient, but you're not connected. The vulnerability here is that direction without connection becomes control. Stability without emotion becomes absence.
You're physically there, holding up the roof.
But nobody feels you.
This is the classic complaint, isn't it? He provides everything, he works so hard, but I don't feel like he knows me. I feel like I'm living with a manager.
Exactly. And the partner in the masculine role often feels totally baffled by this. They're thinking, I'm doing the job, I fixed the sink, why are you unhappy?
But they're only using half the toolkit.
That's it. To keep that masculine role healthy, to keep it from becoming toxic, that partner must develop traits society labels as feminine.
So they need to reach into the other side of the toolbox. What are they grabbing?
Emotional attunement, empathy,
Receptivity.
relational listening,
Yeah.
all of it.
And I can hear some people listening bracing themselves, like, oh, great, now I have to be soft, I have to lose my edge. But the text argues this isn't about weakness at all.
Not even close. These are regulatory tools. The text says, softness allows structure to remain humane. That's the key.
Softness allows structure to remain humane.
Think about the best boss or leader you ever had. Were they a chaotic pushover?
No, they had structure.
But did they listen? Did they understand your perspective?
Okay. The best leaders make you feel seen. They don't just bark orders.
And that seeing, that empathy, is a feminine trait. But when it's used by a leader, it doesn't make them less of a leader. It makes their leadership effective.
Without it, you're just shouting into a void.
That's all it is.
So empathy isn't a weakness for a leader. It's actually the governance mechanism. It's the steering wheel.
It's the feedback loop. If you're driving a car, that's direction, that's masculine. You need to be able to feel the road. You need to hear the engine. If you numb out those senses because you think feeling is weak, you are going to drive off a cliff.
So if we pull back, this completely changes how we view polarity. I mean, so much relationship advice out there, especially on social media, is about maximizing the difference.
Oh, yeah. The romance novel approach.
Right. Be super girly, be super manly, and that creates the spark. The brooding duke and the damsel in distress. But the source material says that's up. What is that?
It creates artificial polarity. And the text warns that artificial polarity is brittle. It breaks under pressure.
Because nobody can hold a pose forever.
Exactly. If the polarity depends on me never being sad and you never being strong, what happens when I lose my job? Or you get sick? Or we have a baby and nobody slept for 3 days?
The whole system collapses.
It shatters. The goal isn't contrast, it's integration.
Integration. Okay, that sounds better, but let's define it. Does it just mean we meet in some boring middle, everyone's just lukewarm?
No, and that is such a crucial distinction. We aren't trying to make everyone androgynous or average.
Okay.
Integration means you stay in your role. You're still the anchor for the feminine or the masculine,
Yeah.
but you become a whole person within that role.
So you're a whole feminine partner because you have boundaries. You're a whole masculine partner because you have empathy. You aren't fragmented.
Yes. You stop performing a caricature. The section on performance was really striking to me. It talks about the energy cost of stereotypes.
Performance drains energy. That line jumped out at me too.
Just think about it. How much energy does it take to suppress a natural reaction? If you're the masculine partner and you feel grief or fear, but you tell yourself, don't cry, hold it in, be the rock, that is a massive caloric burn.
It's physical work.
It is like holding a beach ball underwater. You can do it for a minute, maybe an hour, but eventually your arms get tired.
And when they get tired, the ball flies up in your face.
Or you just check out. That's the burnout. That's the midlife crisis. That's the I love you, but I'm not in love with you conversation. It's just exhaustion from performance.
So the alternative is what the text calls role maturity.
Which is so different from role confusion.
Yeah.
Society looks at a dad comforting a child with tears in his eyes and might say, oh, he's soft.
Right.
The text says. No, that is role maturity. He is responding to what is required by the child rather than clinging to what is expected by society.
It's about coherence. That word kept popping up. Coherence restores energy.
And coherence is just a fancy way of saying your outsides match your insides. It's what makes sense for your nervous system. When you choose coherence, when you grab the tool that's actually needed, you stop leaking energy. You stop fighting yourself.
This is so fascinating because it reframes the whole work of relationships. We usually think working on the relationship means, I don't know, compromise or date nights.
Or communication drills.
Yeah, but this suggests the real work is actually about self-authorization.
Ooh, that's a brilliant way to put it.
Like giving myself permission to be a bitch, in quotes, for a minute, if that protects the family, or giving myself permission to be weak, in quotes, for a minute, so I can actually connect with my partner.
And realizing that doing so serves the relationship. That's the kicker. You aren't doing it just for you, you're doing it for the yes.
So let's talk results, because this requires a mindset shift. It's scary to drop the script. Why is it worth it?
Well, the source lists 3 massive outcomes. First, obviously burnout decreases.
Yeah.
You just have more energy. But the second one is the silent killer of so many relationships. Resentment.
Resentment is the poison in the well. Once it's there, it's so hard to get out.
And where does it come from? Usually from overfunctioning and under-receiving, from feeling unsafe.
Right. I do everything for everyone and nobody protects me.
Exactly. But when the priority feminine partner develops those masculine boundary tools, resentment starts to fade. Why? Because she doesn't need to wait for him to realize she's overwhelmed. She has the authority to stop it herself.
She is safe within her own power.
Yes, she stops being a victim of her own role. She stops waiting to be saved and just saves herself, which paradoxically makes the whole relationship happier.
And for the masculine partner.
He feels safe to lead because he's allowed to be human. He isn't isolating himself in a tower of stoicism. And this creates what the text calls sustainable polarity.
Sustainable polarity. I love that term. It implies the other kind, the stereotype kind, is disposable.
It's flash paper, burns bright and disappears. Sustainable polarity is a slow burn. It's resilient. The text uses the word resourced. Both partners are resourced.
Meaning nobody is running on empty.
And nobody is compensating for the other person's inability to be a full human being. You're not carrying the entire load of feelings for the couple. I'm not carrying the entire load of thinking.
It paints a picture of a relationship that is just quieter. In a good way. Less drama, more function.
Calmer, more alive,
Yeah.
and honestly sexier. Because you're interacting with a real person, not a cardboard cutout. There's a depth there that isn't possible when you're just performing.
There's a quote near the end of the text I think sums this all up. Choosing coherence over stereotype is not rebellion, it is adaptation. And adaptation is how relationships last.
It's just evolutionary logic. If you want your relationship to survive the complexities of the modern world, kids, careers, aging parents, financial stress, you cannot use a playbook from 1950.
You cannot solve a 2026 problem with a 1950s tool.
Exactly. The environment has changed, so the organism must adapt.
So let's bring this down to the ground for the listener. What does this look like tomorrow morning? What's the homework?
It looks like checking your toolbox. If you're the feminine partner, the nurturer, maybe functional intelligence today, looks like saying no to a request you usually say yes to. Not because you're angry, but because you're protecting your energy.
It looks like disappointment management.
That's a good one. Being okay with letting someone down to keep yourself up.
And if you're the masculine partner?
Maybe it looks like putting down the solution. Stop trying to fix the problem for 5 minutes. Stop trying to architect the outcome and just sit in the discomfort of the emotion with your partner. Just listen.
And the hardest part, not judging yourself for it.
Right. Not thinking, am I failing as a man because I don't have the answer? Or am I being too aggressive as a woman because I stoke up?
But instead realizing I am doing exactly what is needed to keep the system balanced.
Yes. It circles back to the carpenter. You don't judge the carpenter for using the screwdriver. You judge them by whether the cabinet stands up.
The goal is the health of the relationship, not the performance of the worker.
Precisely.
This has been surprisingly relieving. I feel like we just got permission to be human again. It takes the pressure off getting it right and shifts it to being effective.
That is the goal. Functional intelligence isn't about being smarter. It's about being more honest about what is required in the moment.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's just recap the big takeaway. Healthy relationships are not about adhering to a rigid script.
No. They are about adaptation.
Yeah.
Recognizing that roles leading, nurturing are vital, but the traits we use to fulfill them have to be fluid.
Move toward necessity, not identity.
That's it.
And that concept of functional intelligence, using the right tool for the job, regardless of whether it's painted pink or blue, is the key to preventing burnout.
It is the difference between performing a relationship and actually living in one.
I want to leave everyone with a thought that came to me while we were talking. We all have those moments where we feel like we are breaking character. You feel guilty for being demanding or weak for being sensitive.
We treat those moments like failures, like we slipped up.
Exactly. But what if those flaws, that moment the leader needs to cry or the nurturer sets a hard wall, what if those aren't failures? What if that is actually the very evidence of your functional intelligence coming online?
It's your system trying to save itself.
It's your relationship trying to balance. So the next time you feel that urge to break the script, maybe listen to it.
Trust that instinct. It's usually right.
Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Until next time.